So we're going to check in on the real estate vibe right now in the city. We're always watching what's happening in Toronto when it comes to real estate and the interest rates recently. Okay, we had a cut this summer. Are we going to have another one? And how is that going to influence the market? And what about condos? What is happening with the condos that are sitting on the market? Fewer people seem to be buying them. And not to mention parking spots. How valuable are they right now? Well, let's check in with Deval Morrison with Bosley Real Estate Limited. Good morning, Deval.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, it's great to have you on. I always love talking real estate. I think everybody is obsessed with it. So you probably have no problem at cocktail parties, right? It's just the hottest topic.
It's true. Canadians love to talk about real estate. In fact, I was literally getting my teeth cleaned yesterday and the dental hygienist was talking to me about real estate.
Stop. I can't talk. Clean my teeth. Well, you know what? I guess anyone with skin in the real estate game has been holding out hope that the market's going to pick back up, right? With the arrival of lower interest rates and, after we've seen months of slow sales, it seems like buyer interest is ramping up for at least some housing types. Is that for sure?
It's August. So August is traditionally slow. Yes, you've got a couple of pockets where people are starting to buy, but you know what? I think everybody's really hoping for the fall because on September the 4th, there's another interest rate, announcement. I'm going to say reduction coming.
Yeah.
So I think that's what a lot of people are holding out for, that we'll have, our third reduction this year, which will spur people on to buy more because right now there's so much inventory in the condo market it's astounding. And I think the big fear is that it's going to become even greater because there's so many people that are holding back on listings now and waiting till September to list them.
So then we're going to see a flood of listings, which is good for the buyer.
Yes, absolutely. But right now we've got this buyer's market without a lot of buyers. Right. So the buyers need to come back. And I think that one of the huge stumbling blocks outside of the large interest rates, and I should say historically over the last 20 years, interest rates aren't really that high.
Right.
It's just from our small memories of what we're used to, they're high.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Some of us remember the double digits, right? Way back when.
Exactly. Exactly. But buyers now face the stress test. So they basically get analyzed at a rate that's 2% greater than the current bank rate. And so that's why it becomes so much more difficult for buyers to get into the market. It's not necessarily about the current rates, although part of it is. Mm-hmm. It's about the stress test. And they created the stress test a few years ago because they wanted to make sure that Canadians could withstand a higher interest rate environment. So I feel like, okay, we've passed that test. Can we remove the stress test already?
Right. And how often would you have ever said, let's wait till the fall market too, Deval? Like, is that unusual? I always thought it was like the spring market was everything.
Always the spring and fall have been the highest markets, spring high, fall second highest. But especially in August, generally, no matter what the market is, we're always telling people don't list in August, wait until September. Because August is really that traditional time where so many people are on vacation. And, mm-hmm. Whether they're going up north to a cottage or whether they're traveling Europe or whatever they're doing, there's just so many people that are not in town in August. So if you put a property on the market in August, it's not really giving you the best exposure.
Right. So do you have clients kind of that are in sort of waiting on the sidelines, ready to go in September with a rate cut? You do, huh?
Absolutely. It's funny. I have one client who said, "Yeah, I'll talk to you when I get back from the cottage in the fall." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Right.
I always hear about people who are up at the cottage.
Yeah.
And then it was sort of funny that it sort of hit me in the face that I'm like, oh, this person, just has a house in Leaside, but they're up in the cottage for the summer. And so, when the fall kicks in, they will be back to business. And, it's something I know so I live in Midtown Toronto. And when I speak to some of the area shop owners, the guy that owns the cheese store, the guy that owns the fruit and veggie stand, they tell me that the traffic in this neighborhood is significantly mm-hmm. down in the summertime. And it's because people are out of their cottages.
Well, yeah. In certain areas, you can see it on the streets, right? It's empty. And some people, like I grew up in Toronto, right? In the North End, right?
Yeah.
And we always say like the best time of summer is summertime when it just clears out. Everybody's gone.
Exactly. Absolutely. So people aren't here. So, needless to say, it's not a great time to get exposure. In fact, we're staging a couple of condos right now that are ready to go, but we're just going to wait till September to list them simply because we don't feel that the buyers are out there right now. Right. So, it is definitely a strong thing to be doing right now.
And speaking about the condo market, what's going on there, right? We've heard that there's this influx of condos sitting there, fewer people buying them than ever in the last 27 years. So, what is going on?
It is true. And again, the stress test, high interest rates, you don't have a lot of buyers in the market, but you also have a lot of investors who are shying away from buying condos. And, the investor market, I think, has really been the big story here because it's significantly affected the pre-construction condo market, where we see that condo developers aren't doing as many launches because they simply can't sell what they need to sell. Some of the condos that have been launched can't get to the threshold. So most pre-construction condos need to sell 70 to 80% of their units before they can get their construction financing released.
Wow.
And so if they can't sell that number of units, then they're not building. So, a lot of people, I guess, sort of poo-poo investors, but the reality is that over the last 10 years, those rental housing providers have been the largest people who have provided rental housing because the government right now is not building long-term rentals as much as they used to. So, and because rates have become so high and because a lot of those landlords are on variable rates, a lot of them are also selling those condos that they own and that we're renting out because they feel that they can no longer afford them because by the time they do the math of their mortgage payments, their maintenance fees, their property taxes with what they can get charged for rent, it's not making it enough money. In fact, it's losing, $500, $700, $1,000 a month. So people want out. So to me, what's going to be interesting is what's going to happen 3, 4, 5 years from now when you couple the lack of building of condos, the lots of mom and pop landlords selling their condos. What happens to the rental market?
Right. And so there's so many things that conspire, right, to cause issues in this city of Toronto. And there's one thing I wanted to touch on also while I've got you about condos, and that is parking spaces.
Yeah.
So how much are they a premium when people want to get into the condo market or if they're buying or renting a condo or leasing a condo?
Well, so if someone wants to buy a condo with parking versus not parking, it definitely it's going to cost a little bit more. And for some people who are in the condo market right now trying to sell their condo, it is going to make sure that their condo gets sold faster than a condo that does not have parking. But if you look at the pre-construction condo market and how much it actually costs to buy a parking spot, I was at a condo launch at Yonge and St. Clair a couple of years ago, and it was over $100,000 to buy a parking spot.
Wow. And is that holding up still to this day with everything that's been going on?
Yeah. And that's just the market. It obviously depends on which part of the city you're in. It's not as expensive to buy a parking spot at Yonge and Eglinton as it is at Yonge and St. Clair or in Yorkville, where it's quite expensive. So it does vary all over the city. But yeah, we're talking about parking spots. They're at least 60, 80, over $100,000. And for, I've got another client in Yorkville, and for their condo, they said, because they just bought a 1-bedroom, they just simply weren't allowed to buy parking because there wasn't enough parking to buy, because parking is really expensive to build, which is one of the reasons why it's so expensive for consumers to buy it.
Right. And there's a lot of condos that are being built without parking now, right?
Absolutely. There are some, which makes the building cost much cheaper for the developer, which is a good thing. And, it's interesting. There's a building downtown by the St. Lawrence Market called 25 The Esplanade, and that building doesn't own its parking garage. So what I notice when I'm selling condos in that building is the maintenance fees in that building are much lower. And it's simply because they don't own the parking garage. Now, if you want to have a parking spot, you can get one, and the rental is just over $250 a month to rent a parking spot. But it is really interesting for me to see that because this condo building doesn't own its parking garage, how that's impacted the maintenance fees.
Yeah. Well, listen, Devel, thanks so much for the chat this morning, checking up on real estate in the city of Toronto. We really appreciate it. And good luck with all those new listings coming in September.
Thanks for having me.
We'll talk again soon. That's Devel Morrison with Bosley Real Estate.